Hey there, welcome back, or welcome, either one. I'm Joe. Welcome to the channel. We're going to jump into the middle of something. I wasn't going to do this as a video. Then I was and promptly forgot. And now I'm halfway through. So let me show you what we've got. We've got it right behind us. You can see a Briggs & Stratton block pretty well stripped down. So let's get over there. So a little while ago, well, several months, I took this Sweepster apart, or at least tried to repair it. I don't think I really took it apart. I certainly didn't take the engine off, which I have done now. That's inside. Fixed it all up. Seemed to run really good. Middle of summer. Well, our first snowstorm was light, fluffy snow. A couple inches. I said, you know what? I'm not going to break out the snowblower. I'll use the Sweepster. And I got about 50 feet, and the engine just seemed to seize right up. Why? I don't know. So here it is, January, and I have removed the motor, and we're going to see it in parts inside. So at first, it seemed like it turned really hard and then wouldn't turn at all. And I said, oh, I probably seized up the piston or the connecting rod or something. Well, aside from the walls having absolutely no crosshatch in them, they don't look too bad for an engine that's probably 50 years old. And I said, okay, well, that's not the problem. So I then looked at the piston, and without my glasses on, I can't tell if you can see that or not. But it looks pretty good. And of course, the piston has some wear on it. There is a gouge in it. I can feel that right there. But other than that, I mean, for a 50-year-old machine, it's not too bad. And I looked at the crank. The bearing surface looks pretty good there. Turns pretty free. It's got a lot of slop in it. So I'm going to try to get this running again. I am not going to bore it oversized, get a new piston. The amount that I use this is like 10, maybe 15 hours a year. So I'm going to clean up the skirt on the piston as best I can. I ordered some new rings. I did do that. I ordered a gasket set. And we're going to start putting it together. First, we've got to clean it. I've got it in parts here. There, here, and here. This is the end cover with the governor on it, the crank, the camshaft, the tappets or lifters, as you might say. One of the reasons I don't replace it is it uses a 6-to-1 gear reduction on it. 6.1, I think, to 1. And those motors for replacement motors are A, little hard to come by, and 2, very expensive. So, since I've already replaced the ignition coil and the carburetor, I decided I'm going to continue. So the first thing I did, well, after taking it all apart, as I checked this surface, I cleaned this all up. This has got some bluing on it. I was checking the valves. Scraped this all down pretty good. Then took a flat file to it, very carefully. Just there were a couple little high spots, so I took those out. And when I pulled the valves, the intake didn't look too bad, but the exhaust was horrible. The intake was a little sticky. It didn't want to go up and down very well. But you can see that this seat looks pretty good. Hang on a second. I'm going to get some reading glasses, some cheaters, because it's driving me nuts looking at everything and not being able to see it clearly, so I don't know what you're seeing. So you can see that this seat looks pretty good, but it's very far down. You can see a lip right in there. And what I'm thinking is that these have worn enough that there's actually no clearance on the tappets or lifters. What I did do is take some valve grinding compound, and I did this one, and this looks really good. I'm happy with that. It slides in and out really good. Here, now look at this one. Well, let's see if you can. This is just junk. So we're going to try to clean this up. Wire brush, scrub it. See if just putting valve grinding compound on this after I clean it up helps a little. So let's do that. Well, I didn't film it because I am holding my camera, and really you don't need to watch me lap valves. But you can see that this did clean up quite a bit the first time through. This is showing the hint of hitting, which it didn't do before. But I'm going to grind it a second or third time. The problem I have is that my lapping tool is too big, so I'm going to go find a different way to spin this valve. So I couldn't get my lapping tool to stick to that. The valve's too small. But somebody on YouTube actually used hot glue and seems to work good, except now mine just loosened up inside. But it worked good for a while. So let's see how that looks now. I'll switch hands here. Wipe this out. And take some brake cleaner. Well, boy, I don't know why it doesn't. You know, a lot of people have problems focusing up close. Well, it looks a whole lot better than it did. I can actually see a ring all the way around. Now, the question is did the valve make out the same way? It actually, wow, that looks so much better. Let's go see what the valve looks like without destroying my Harbor Freight. Let's put this in here for a minute. And, well, I'll bring you back after I clean it. So, how did we do this? Let's focus on something. There we go. Now I have a nice ring around that valve. So I'm going to say that was a success. I'm going to rinse and repeat with fine grinding compound next. I don't know if I need to, but I will. Now, of course, because I use valve grinding compound, I've got to clean this thing thoroughly. I really don't want valve grinding compound in my bearing surfaces. So that will be the next step, because I think what I was working on here is to clean this surface to get these valves going. Ultimately, I'm going to have to probably grind the end of these down. They seem awfully low. The seats are awfully low. They're worn. But I won't be able to do that until I get the the end case on, the cam in, the lifter's in place, and check all that. But that's easy, and well, it's fairly easy. These are not the best clips to use in here. I'm going to have to pull them out when I want to do the valves. But no, if I clean this up, I'm pretty much done monkeying with this case. I'm not going to worry about the seal in the front or the bearing. It seemed okay. This bearing seemed a little tired, but again, it is what it is. I'm going to run it the way it is. So this is how I'm doing it. Don't do it this way. So here we are. I cleaned up the valve seats. I honed this a little just to get some hone marks in there so that the walls weren't so shiny. Sprayed it all down really good with pretty much a whole can of brake parts cleaner, at least where it was critical. Inside here, I got all there. I got in there. Took a file, a nice big flat file to this again, got rid of some of the high spots. Cleaned up the faces of the intake and exhaust ports. And basically cleaned the outside a little bit so that it didn't get greasy every time I touched it. Well, looking for why it seized up, I finally found it, I think, and I probably should have found this earlier. This is all, well, it got overheated. It's blue. And that is pretty well scored up as well. It's a little hard to see with the camera. Not going to see it that way at all. But well, there, you might be able to see a bunch of it there. So the question is can I even find this cover? How much is it? You know, in for a dime, in for a dollar. I've just ordered $100 worth of parts for this. Can I clean up this shaft? I'm going to try. What I may end up doing, which is probably the hardest way, but it's the least expensive, is to mill this out and put a bushing in, sleeve it. That's a lot of work. But that's where I am. I'm now at this point. I was going to show you how I was going to adjust the valves, but I think now I'm going to work on cleaning this, see how bad this crank is, and then go look online for another one of these. The difference is that this is where the 6-to-1 gear ratio reduction goes, and this is cut out for a special bushing in there. I don't know if they're all like that. That's what I've got to find out. I was hoping there was a mark on this cover for a part number, but I didn't see one. So I guess I'm going to find out. Okay, we're back on this little 5-horse that goes to my Sweepster. I was waiting for some parts. I've got most of the stuff to go a little bit further now. And I think we left off that I was actually lapping these valves because this one was so far into the seat that it wasn't even closing all the way. And this one was a little dirty. So I've cleaned up everything really well. Cleaned out all the goop in here. And what I did before I turned the camera on is I put the end cover on with the camshaft in here, but not with any, let's see if it'll show it when it gets dark enough. Yeah, without the springs and keepers in there, but I put the tappets or lifters in. And what I was able to do was push down really hard on the valve and get the appropriate space, the gap on the ends of the shafts. They were both a little tight, tight enough that this one really truly wasn't closing. So I had to grind off. I used my regular bench grinder and then took a really fine stone, a honing stone, to the end of the valve, to the end of the valve stem, to smooth that out a little. Don't know the proper way. I suppose I could have put it on the lathe, except it's kind of hard. It's pretty hard metal, so that worked out well. The intake is probably about 3/1000 too loose, which I'd rather have than 3/1000 too tight. And they work really well. Then I had a devil of a time getting the springs and stuff in because I don't have a valve tool for that. But I was able to get them in, and they look really good. So now I'm going to start putting things back together. However, one of the issues I had, which I had shown you, was that this guy is, well, I cleaned him up really good, but he's kind of scored. But more importantly, the cover that came off of here was scored really well. And I said, you know, I've got to get a new one. Well, thanks to a guy on eBay, thank you. If you see this, I might send you a link. He sent me not only the back cover, but another engine block, the head, exhaust muffler, and the governor parts. So all I needed was this. I was happy to buy it all. Didn't matter. I'll throw it on the shelf for now. And what is interesting is the model number 130, that's the first part of it, is a 5-horse, 13 cubic inches, I guess. So the other engine is a 130, but the last 3 digits were 212, and I have a 252. And the difference in that is this end cover. Fortunately, the cover itself, between the 212 and the 252, when you look them up, the covers are the same, but they have a different crankshaft, the engines, because this has got a gear on it for the gear reduction, and the 212 has a tapered shaft, I believe. And also in here, because this is going to the outside world without the 6-to-1 reduction that I have, I had to pull out this adapter and the seal. They aren't used on this. Instead, there's a felt seal that goes in here that I'm waiting on. And really, that was it. You know, a little research, and I was able to get that part. And then somebody else on eBay had some new old stock piston rings, and I have yet to put those in. But here we are, we're making progress again. The valves are in, the tappets are in. I got to pull the cam out again so I can work on the piston next, I believe. And that's where we're going to stop for now. I don't think I need... There's enough people online that show how to put piston rings on. And in fact, I have to do some reading to make sure I know how these go on. I had already honed the cylinder a little to get rid of the glossiness in it. So that's where we are. There's no countershaft to worry about. It's just getting the piston next and the splash, the oil splash, in. So that's where we sit. I happen to have found this service manual years ago, and it's in my library. Service and repair instructions from 1984, it looks like. 270962. So, of course, it's good for the old engines, which this one is. And I'm currently in Chapter 9, which is, as soon as I get that flipped open, pistons, rings, and rods. So the first thing I did, of course, pulled all the rings off, the old rings. Not going to do much with the connecting rod. It looks fine. I'm going to put it back in. But I'm following this, which is a lot more than I normally would do. And the first thing is to check ring grooves. And you put the top ring in, and you better not be able to put a 7 thousandths feeler gauge between it and the top. And I couldn't, which is good. Then I took the rings, all 3 rings, the new ones, where are they? Like this. And I stuck them inside. Don't mind the finger, I slice it open with a piece of wire. But I put them down in the cylinder and squared them up with the piston. I put the piston in upside down and then checked the ring gap to make sure that it wasn't too big, and it's pretty small, which is great. But when I put the first one in, maybe I should check the second one too. These are new old stock, but they got a little bit of rust on them, which kind of aggravates me. Oh, and this does have a taper. This is different than the original ring. This has a... I don't know if I can show you. No, I can't show you. It might give you a picture. But the other ring, the old ring, looked just totally flat. And the newer rings... I can't find... Oh, here's the old ring. The old ring, you can see, is flat on that side, and is flat on that side. The new ring has a step, so I have to look up to see if the step goes up or down. I think it goes up. But I checked, and the concern I have is I have to look at all the rings. Now, these are new old stock. I actually found a couple little bits of rust on them. So I'm going to not hone those, but I'm going to take a special stone and take those off there to make them nice and clean. So I'm working my way through, checking. I don't care about chrome rings. I checked my ring gap. Not going to do rejects on that. Piston pin connecting rod. Assembled piston and connecting rod is done. Assemble rings to piston. Okay, so here's the cross-sectional view. Hello. There we go. So I do have the first ring going up. And the second ring may have a cross-section too, but it doesn't. It's just square. So square is square. And of course, the oil ring is symmetrical as well, it looks like. So let me put those on the piston. I might have a piston ring tool, but that's the next step, is to clean the piston thoroughly, put those on, lubricate them a little. Well, I was surprised. I put this on. It's a convenient place to do that. Using a, where is it? Ultra Slick engine assembly lube. And I was worried that I was going to have to twist the rings to get them on. But lo and behold, I haven't seen this for about 35 years. It's been buried in the bottom of my automotive drawer in my toolbox. is a ring expander. And boy, does it work slick. So that's what we're up to now. I sort of have to decide which ring. One ring is square and one ring has a design, and the old one, neither of them had a design. If the one with the cutout goes on the top or in the middle. So that's where I am right now. For what I'm doing, it probably actually doesn't matter much since the old ones didn't care. So I'll put those on and see what happens. All right. Well, with my piston ring spreader, which I think that's what this is. Don't know for sure. I was able to get, and it worked for it. I got the 3 rings on. And nowhere in the book does it say orientation. And I believe, excuse me, from in the past, you take the rings and set the gap 180 degrees out on each one. So that's what I've pretty much done here. Yeah. So now to get the ring compressor, I hope mine goes small enough, and put this in, and I have to put it in the right way, which is now up for debate. Oh, no, I still have the splasher on it, the oiler. And as I recall, this has to go this way because that's where the oiler is. So now I can take off the bottom and put that in. I don't think I'm going to take it off until I actually put the ring compressor on, just in case I spin it around by mistake. Excuse me. Now would probably be a good time to say, this is not a how-to, because if it were a how-to, I probably would have taken the other half of the engine apart with the magneto and the flywheel and checked that bushing and probably done a few other things differently, like not make so much gap on the valves, put it in a parts washer, all that good stuff. I didn't do that, but that's me. If you want a professional way to do it, I suggest either send it out or find somebody else on YouTube that will say this is how you do it. So there you are. Let me go find a compressor. All right, the ring compressor is on. I actually don't think it was made for small engines. I think it was made when I was rebuilding automotive engines. And true to my word, I've got it turned around 180, excuse me, again. So now I have to unbolt the cap, keep it in the right orientation when I put it down. So that I don't turn the piston backwards. Oh, excuse me. The tickle in the throat. It's winter time. That's what happens, I guess. I'm going to turn the crank down to the bottom for now. Wow, that went a lot smoother than I thought. Never expected it to go in. Something that I've never done in the past, and that was before YouTube and the internet stuff got so wild. In the past, I used to just clamp this on, never thinking about lubricating it. But this time I used the Ultra Slick assembly lube, and boy, it went right in. Can't beat that. So now, before we get carried away, we'll get the connecting rod down. And try to put the splasher on in the bottom half. And I have to look up the torque specs. Don't know if I'm supposed to use new bolts or not. I'm not going to. I suppose I should have, but... And I also did not put any assembly lube on the... There we go. On the connecting rod journal, but it's got it now. I've got more than enough. Guess I'll put it on there. Of course, that's assuming I don't have any dirt on my fingers. Big assumption. What I'm going to do is put them on hand tight, spin it, and make sure I have clearance for everything. Because I really, actually, maybe I should see if I have pictures someplace on where this splasher goes, the oiler. I don't think I took pictures of this when I took it apart, which is unfortunate. But I'm getting there. Okay. So that's on enough. So let me see. This comes around. Yeah, that works. So now it's time. I'll go get my torque wrench, torque these, put my two tappets in, lifters, probably tappets, I guess they call them in the old days. Line up the connecting rod, and put the end cover on. I think I'll bring it back when I'm done with that. That's just straight assembly stuff. So I'm going to check end play now on this motor, this engine, I'm sorry. The piston is in, the bolts are torqued to spec, the camshaft is aligned, put my breather on. So the manual says don't use a gasket less than 15 thousandths, and this is between 15 and 20 thousandths. I have a second gasket, which I think would work better because I think I have too much end play, but it's only 5 or 10 thousandths. And it says on the aluminum crankcase you need to have at least the 15 thousandths to start. And they say you can stack these to make more room, and I guess if you put everything new in here you'd need it, but I don't need it. Now I just tried this a little while ago, and couldn't get it on, couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, my governor lever was getting hung up, so you have to hold the governor lever up while you slide this guy on. And I see something I don't like there, a tiny lock washer. We'll try that again. Hold this up. And gradually push this on. And it should slide right in there. Well, it's further than it was, but it's not right yet. Boy, it should go right on those pins. And I guess it's possible the cam is not set. Oh, yeah. The cam was dropped down slightly, so I wiggled the crankshaft and it popped right in. So I'm going to put these bolts in snug and check my end play. I don't have a torque spec in the book for these bolts, which is really surprising. So I guess I'll have to go online and see what the standard torque spec is for a 5/16 bolt. Looking for a grade. I'll assume they aren't very high grade. That's probably a mistake. Huh. Looks like it has a boat anchor on the end. Or an E, I don't know. So we'll just put them on snug. I'm not going to really torque them too hard because I don't think I'm going to squish that gasket much to check end play. And the end play should be between 2 and 8 thousandths. And they give you a couple of different ways to check it, and I'm going to use neither. Again, because I didn't do a full rebuild, I'm not going to worry about being exactly on spec. Wow, those threads must be a little damaged. All right, moment of truth. Well, it seems like a lot. So let's pull it out all the way, which is there. And we will check this. And I have 1.512. Well, maybe that's not a good thing. Well, let me push it in all the way. Let me do that one first so I don't. That's well, now I can see why you might want to do it the other way. You have to make sure you get this thing square. It changes quite a bit. But I'm going to call that 1.5 1.5 exactly. Let's see what this pulls out to. Well, that's 10 thousandths. Well, closer to 15. So it's supposed to be 8 maximum, 2 to 8, and I got 15 thousandths. So I guess I'm gonna have to. I will have to make a shim. I can probably still buy them, but I think I'm going to just make one. So it's got to be about 10 thousandths, 8 thousandths anyway to get it down to close to the range. Now when I torque this cover down, I'll gain a little something. So let's go for 7 or 8 thousandths. So I'm going to see what I have for shim stock and then make one. And I have to be careful on how I make it, because I don't want to block off any oil passages or where the oil is going to splash. I suppose I could look online and see if I can get the shims. I mean, they're pretty standard, I would think, but they're also pretty simple, I think. Shouldn't hurt this motor that's 40 plus years old and has been running without them. So my problem is it uses the the gear off the crank to keep it in the right distance. And I'm assuming that this material here is worn a little. It sure won't be worn on this. So I was thinking I could put one behind it, then it's not going to be spinning on it all the time. But that's an awful small surface back there to put a gasket, to put a spacer on. I suppose it's possible. But you have a much bigger surface on the outside. Although on here you don't. Well, you've got a fair amount here. Just want to double check that I'm using the right side. Yeah, I've got the right side out because that's the only side that has a little pin or hole to demark where the alignment should be. And the back side, boy, it touches on the crank in such a small area that I would never be able to put a piece of shim stock in there and not have it squeeze out. So I guess we're going to make one you can definitely see where this has been wearing and where it has not. Doesn't feel like there's anything there because this is metal and that's aluminum. So I am going to make one about the same size as where I saw the aluminum rubbing. And we'll stick it on here. All right, that's next. Not going to show you how I make a gasket. Well, that was an hour or so. Make a little round shim. So now comes the critical measurement. Let's see if I made it good enough, between 2 and 8 thousandths. So I still have play because I can hear it, but boy, it's not much. So that's a good thing. So let's push that in all the way. I did not go get the torque specs on these, but they're pretty snug. I really don't think you're gonna squeeze much more out of a 15 thousandths gasket. That's pretty much still 1500. Let's see what happens when I pull it out this way. Well, that's 08. That's 8 thousandths. And because the shim isn't totally flat, it might be slightly bigger. But boy, that's a whole lot better than it was. So let me go get the torque specs on 5/16 bolts. I think that's what they are. I'm going to go check. And torque those and measure it again. Well, I guess I'm not in the business as much. I could have sworn these were going to be 5/16. They're 1/4 20. Probably conservatively do 8 foot-pounds. This is inch-pounds. So 8 12s, 96, 100. Wow, that seems to be an awful lot. Is that what I use? I used that on something else in here. Oh, I used it on the connecting rod. Well, let's see what that feels like. That seems like that's too much. Let's do around there. Let's see what that is. Oh, that's pretty good. Well, that's 84. Yeah. So can I do 90? All right, that's 90 foot-pounds. Let's see. 6 more, or inch-pounds. Oh, that's not bad. All right. So those are torqued. I still have some slop. I just hope I don't have to go in there because I forgot something. I've got my governor pieces, all the crank and camera aligned, torqued the connecting rod. I think I'm done inside. Well, I think the next piece to go on is going to be the head gasket. So I don't know what's going on here. It looks like I got duplicates of everything, almost as if they dropped a couple of gasket sets and had to figure out, excuse me, how to put them back on. Oh, I've got to do this end. I'll do that afterwards because that's not as straightforward as I thought. So head gaskets. I got two. They look identical. Caliper says they're identical. So I guess we have a spare. Should go in. Oh, all right. Just had some dirt. Okay. Well, let me go see what these are. So I apologize if I don't cut out the part where I was fitting the head because I had you too low. Couldn't get the gasket and the head lined up, so I put the gasket on the underside of the head, put the bolts in, and then dropped the whole thing down and found the holes. The good book says these should be 140 inch-pounds, and I guess we're going to do a snug. We're going to take them down a little at a time. Okay, that looks like the head is on. Good enough. We're making big progress here. I'm actually going to use the same spark plug again. I guess I could put that on. Let me go find it. Well, it's practically brand new. I put it on. I put it in when I serviced this past summer. So it has like 5 minutes on it. Supposed to torque spark plugs too, also. Guess what? Not going to happen. It's probably supposed to change that compression gasket too. But that's good enough. Aluminum head, not going to tighten it more than that. Pretty sure that goes in that slot, like so. Kind of cheap. I think we'll live with that. Guess I'll put this end on. Make sure nothing sticks to the magnet. Ooh. Make sure I got compression. I got good compression. Ugh. Yeah. It turns over. So yeah, I think we're on to putting this end on. Then we'll put the baffles and carb on this. I think I'll stop right there and bring it back when I actually get ready to put the carburetor and fuel tank on and test it. Because now it's just bolted up. Alright, so I torqued these bolts down. Standard 140 inch-pounds. Whatever that is. 12 foot-pounds. Have a new gasket for this. I put the locks on, bent those little tabs over again. This has a hole in it which kind of looks a little strange, kind of bothers me a little. But it's a pretty uniform hole, so we're going to not worry about it, I guess. Make sure we get oil level and oil fill set correctly. Even though that's a new gasket, you can tell it's been sitting around a while because it was stuck inside the package with a brown image as a shadow when I pulled it off. Now we got a whole bunch of extra nuts and bolts here, so we're just going to see if these things fit. I suspect they will. All right, I think that's pretty good. Well, I think we're 3/4 of the way around. Although I do have a shield that looks like it goes over here. The top is done. The pull starter, recoil starter is done. And the gear reducer is done. Yeah. Gee, and it goes in so easy. There we go. We're not going to torque that. All right, I have to remember to put oil in this part, put oil in the crank. Get the extra tools out from behind it. So yeah, I guess I'm down to this side here. Which means I'm probably done with my assembly lube, with my bluing, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm going to clean up a little. Well, this is going to look a little out of sequence, but I just reviewed all my footage and I left a big chunk out. The last you saw was I was getting ready to put the carburetor and fuel tank on. That went without any issues. Put it all back together, bolted it to the Sweepster, and it had a heck of a time trying to get it to start. Forgive me on that one. A message popped up on the screen. And I thought everything was all set, bolted it on, which is somewhat of a pain in the neck. Couldn't get it started, and it was acting like the timing was off. and I foolishly kept trying, and ultimately it kicked back so bad that it shattered the plastic recoil starter where the rope goes. And I said, well, that's it. I took it off, pulled the other end of the engine off, the flywheel end, which I didn't think I was going to have to touch. And sure enough, it had sheared the key. The flywheel was 90 degrees out of where it should be. Ordered a key, ordered the new rope piece inside, the recoil part. Straightforward, put it all back together, and I had to do it twice? No, I don't think so. I think put it back on, and it purrs like a kitten. And that's what you're going to see in the next little clip where I've put it back in storage. I tried it out for about a half hour, getting rid of some slush and so forth. But just when I thought I was all done, it bit me. So it is what it is. And I wish I had filmed some of that, but I really didn't expect anything to come of it. And it did. So the Sweepster is alive again. It's not running at full speed, but I don't think I want it to. It runs at a nice adequate speed. Ultimately, I got to take the recoil starter off again. It screams every now and then, which means it's hanging up inside. Not a big thing. I had a small oil leak because I forgot to tighten up one of the drain plugs, and the recoil wasn't very difficult. The key that I got, that's supposed to be like a generic replacement key from Briggs, I had to grind down a taper on one end because it didn't go in far enough. And I put Loctite on the shaft and cranked the daylights out of it. So hopefully that's not going to come off again. Next time if it hangs up hard, it's going to split the crank shaft. Does a good job. I'm glad. It starts right up one pull. No smoke, so the rings are doing their job. It's just really a nice piece of equipment now. So I hope you like this. I know it was a little disjointed, but I had already gone through it once this past summer, and now I went through the engine pretty well. I went through everything else this summer. Now I went through the engine. It runs really good. Maybe I'll change in the summertime. I'll check the throttle out and pull that recoil off, but it's certainly functional for the snow that we're getting soon. All right, thanks a lot. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and hope to see you on the next one.